so Mission Plus, we're out here in Southeast Asia, for those of you who don't know, and we have been helping OBE rapid prototype solutions for the community of OBE and reimagining what that can look like in 2021. One personal experience that I had a few years ago, just when I had my first startup that was issuing Visa prepaid debit, we really felt that that prepaid debit could actually activate SME sort of solutions around cards and having access to be able to, replacing petty cash. But what we found when we actually went into the market with this solution was that a lot of small business owners, for example, didn't even want to pass that on to their employees because they were stuck in working capital constraints from those that they were actually invoicing as clients. So they were like, we actually need to use our own employees as on a 30, 60-day cycle for petty cash. And the actual real-time payment doesn't help us because we've got these issues already with customers. So it was even cascading, we realized, down to small business owners' employees. And so it's really challenging, I think, everywhere, but we found it more pronounced actually when we were trying to provide a solution that was really missing the mark. Singapore's been my home since 2007, and I moved here from Australia. I was on a transfer with a bank, and I would say that the words at the time, mass affluent, became more and more frequently used. And if anything, that segmentation of customer, upon reflection, made me realize that banks in general were moving into a period of really having to manage risk. And so they became considerably more risk adverse. And this was only exacerbated when we entered into the financial crisis of 2008 and 9. And so I think since we see now today like a similar sort of downturn, a similar period that we're facing where there's a lot of pressure on small business resulting from a similar dislocation, this time due to pandemic. The one thing that gives some optimism is that we have opportunities now for open banking solutions to serve as a catalyst, to improve credit infrastructure, to provide better real-time sort of cash flow management, some of the solutions that we've been hearing, and really enhance offerings to customer. So I think for now, like we're finding that there is an appetite for because the demand's there, and also venture funding is going into these companies to support the gap that the banks were choosing not to serve. I think at times if I was to use the word tell and the word car and you switch them around, I mean, that's some of the luxury that's afforded to some of the incumbents in Southeast Asia. They do have certain rights that, challengers find difficult. And so even if you look at some of the biggest and brightest from, let's say, the UK or Europe who've come out here, they have had to trade sideways until they worked out this landscape. It's not open for all, even if the wording and the signposts say that it is. So it takes time to build relationships to embed into the ecosystem. I will give you one example. Like we have a little show and it's got none of the polish or color of what Helen and OBE do. We had a Swedish entrepreneur a few weeks back, and he launched the largest loan broker in the Nordics, came out to Singapore to do the same. They were aggregating loan applications. These are personal loan applications, but some of them are used by people who obviously have debts in their business. As was mentioned before, there is some commingling. But imagine that now 10 to 20 different providers, one form, you get a response back that says, okay, these three, rather than having to go through that process yourself. Now, we said in the promo, you make loans easy, which is what we thought this solution did. It was actually improving the lives for those who needed access. And he wrote back very quickly and said, oh, we get told by higher powers we can't say that. Loans should be hard. Still a challenge, I think, at times in the system that will break down over time, but we have to sort of play, and acquiesce to certain sort of like continuing rules of the system. We don't talk enough to the customer. We sort of get stuck in language, which is very true. But some of it is, I think, still, at least in this part of the world, gated by norms and conventions that are dictated to us.